Good morning, my students. This is me, Dr. Hani الحسني, and that's the course that I've given, novel course for senior and junior students, and I hope that you will enjoy that class because we will talk about novel 1984. We will move on some chapters just because we have to give you kind of summary in a quick explanation. At the beginning, this is the novel, and the novel has almost around 183 pages. So in other books it can be more, it doesn't matter, by George Orwell. So this is a chapter 1. So you can see like chapter 1, it's on a cold day in April of 1984. A man named Winston Smith returns to his home, a duplicated apartment building called Victory Mansion, thin, frail, and 39 years old. So you can recognize from the beginning what are the most important information about his look. Like he has the way like for description: thin man, frail, and 39 years old. That's for Winston Smith. So from the first two lines we can get the idea about what happened in chapter 1, and that's a very creative way for being to the point by George Orwell, the writer. And then it is painful for him to trudge up the stairs because he has a varicose ulcer above the right ankle. So from the beginning he is suffering from something. So George Orwell here tried to tell us that suffering and pain, it started from the first page. So he find a way of describing how this handsome man is already suffering from the first page. He has health problem and somehow. So, and from the first page you can find out the slogan, Big Brother is watching you. And here he's greeted on each landing by a poster depicting an enormous face underscored by the words, Big Brother is watching you. So his eyes always find out that slogan is followed him everywhere, and he has no idea how he can be out of that atmosphere. And you can see like inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures which had something to do with the production of big iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plate like a dulled mirror, which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. And here you can recognize also how is the style of description for the very in-depth detail, and it's not easy to make it like this without being a well-known writer. He can describe everything in the room or everything that happened with that man. And here his hair was very fair, his face naturally sanguine, his skin roughened by a curse soap and blunt razor blades and the cold of the winter that had just ended. And you can see like again we have that slogan, Big Brother is watching you. The caption said, while the dark eyes looked deep into Winston's own. And then we have one word that's called Ingsoc. So here, if you want to talk about Winston, he's an insignificant official in the party, the totalitarian political regime that rules all the airstrip one, the land that used to be called England. And England, it's called in that part of the novel. It's called Oceania. It's a very big deal. And the second page here, we can find that thought police mattered. So the thought police, we can find as well how the police and how the totalitarian system or the regime that the country followed is very tough and hard. It's harsh, tough, and hard on people. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously, and that simultaneously, it means every single point or every action that you have done, it's already written or mentioned in the inner party as well as the regime. So from the beginning, we can sense to what extent it's difficult for people to be in that community. And here Winston kept his back turned to the screen, and it means here Winston is trying to be a rebellious or to do that rebel against the regime from the beginning. He didn't show the telescreen his face. And one important rule for the telescreen, because it has two-sided telescreen, watching people in their homes or houses, Winston trying to hide something from the telescreen. And that's one sign which signified how much or to what extent that Winston is trying to stand against that regime. It was safer, so this description, it was safer to turn back to the screen, as he well knew even back can be revealing. It means even if he give his back, something will reveal him, but he is not, or he won't be sure about exactly how they recognize him. A kilometer away, or the Ministry of Truth. So inside that kind of chapter, we can recognize how the names of ministries change. And here, there is something called Ministry of Truth, his place of work toward vast and white above the grimy landscape. So you can see the provinces of Oceania here. It's something we have like the city which called a strip, and he tried to squeeze out some childhood memory. How he can recognize what happened in his childhood. And for the part, Winston is technically a member of ruling class. His life is still under the party's oppressive political control. In his apartment, an instrument called telescreen, as I mentioned, it's already propaganda for the regime, and it's linked to thought police. They can trace you and monitor your action because you are into their own community and citizen. It shows like report about Big Iron. Winston keeps his back to the screen, and the window sees the Ministry of Truth. So his window, it's the overview for the window, it's the Ministry of Screen. He worked as an officer, altering historical records. So Winston worked in the INGSOC. This INGSOC-like officer, they change the history repeatedly. They try every day to change that history. That's why maybe people later on, they won't recognize what happened. And records to match the party's officials. So he changed history based on the party interest. So what is the best way for the party to be everlasting or to be eternal? He will do it for the benefit of the party. And Winston think about the other ministries that exist as part of the party's governmental apparatus, like Ministry of Peace, which wages war. So if you look at the ministries here, we say Ministry of Truth. There is also something for Ministry of Peace. And here, Ministry of Truth, they are trying to show three slogans. And this slogan is, it looks like upside down. Why? Because the ministry here shows something called war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And this is, for sure, is against the logic. the Ministry of Truth here, 3,000 rooms above ground level and corresponding ramifications below, scattered about London. There were just 3 other buildings of similar appearance and size, so it looks like very huge. No one can be in the same time. Like that's the Ministry of Truth. They changed the history, and Winston tried his best, like, to memorize something. Even he's not into that way of changing the history. And the Ministry of Peace, which concerned itself with war. So war is peace here, the Ministry of Peace, and Ministry of Love, freedom is slavery. You have to maintain your law and order. So whenever you like to love somebody, you have to call or visit Ministry of Love and you register your name. And there is Ministry of Plenty, which is responsible for economic affairs. So plenty, it means a lot, and they deal with economy. Their names in Newspeak. So this is a Newspeak that be created as a new language for Oceania. Oceania has a new language, so they call that Mini True, Mini Pax, Mini Love, and Mini Plenty. So that's the names that it's written in a Newspeak language, the language that used in their country, in Oceania. So they call them Mini True, it means Ministry of True, Mini Pax, it means Ministry of Peace, Mini Love, Ministry of Love, and Mini Plenty, Ministry of Plenty. And you can figure out how to your own thinking how Orwell show you the most important names from the beginning. So the slogan you have to memorize, which is war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. It's like something against your thinking. And Winston pulls out a small diary he recently purchased. So what happened in here, Winston in chapter 1 did something. He bought a diary, and this diary he trying to write his own words on it, and he tried to hide himself, like giving back to the telescreen, because he wanted to change and he wanted to keep something as well. Therefore, you can recognize like Victory cigarette here. He took a cigarette from crumble packed marked Victory cigarettes, and you can see like how the cigarettes themselves, they made it as propaganda for the regime. Victory cigarette, what happened to it, like here, and where open the tobacco fell out on the floor. With the next, he was more successful. It means like when he get that cigarette, he will be more successful. He went back to living room and sat down at a small table that stood to the left of the screen. From the table drawer, he took a bin holder. So that's a description of his room and how he trying to change his mood somehow. For some reason, or for the reason, the screen in the living room was in an unusual position. So what happened here, Winston also changed the position that already settled for the telescreen, because he didn't want the telescreen catch every single movement of him. That's why it looks unusual or non-normal or abnormal for it. And here, Winston was now sitting, and which when the flats were built had probably been intended to hold bookshelves. That's another description. We are not here to talk about description. Let's continue quickly what happened here. There is something called the proles. The proles, we say that in that novel there is inner party, outer party, and the proles. And proles, they are so impoverished and insignificant that the party doesn't consider them a threat to its power. So the proles, it means general people, they are not even have any idea about the regime or regime system. That's why they consider them nothing. and they have no thought about they have the power. And Winston begins to write his diary, although he realizes the constitutes of act of rebellion against the party. It means he is not he didn't get any permission to write the diary. He described the film he watched the night before. He thinks about his lust and hatred for dark-haired girl who works in the fiction department at Ministry of Truth. So from the beginning, he started to love a girl with dark hair after watching the movie. So within his diary, he started to do illegal things. This was not illegal, nothing was illegal, since there were no longer any laws. But if detected, it was reasonably certain that would be punished by death. So there is no rule that he should write anything in his diary. And that's why he's doing something dangerous to his condition. And you can see down he set back a sense of complete helplessness. After what? To begin with, he didn't know with any certainty that this was 1984. It must be it should be, it means 1948. So that's the way, from the first chapter, he recognized there is something wrong in the date. So he find out that many things linked to 1944, 1945, and that's why he didn't believe like there is 39 years of his age moved to 1984. There is something missing here, and he started to think what happened in previous times or previous years, and this is another sign that he is trying to do a revolution against the regime. So the telescreen had changed over to strident military music. It was curious that he seemed not merely to have lost the power of expressing himself. So he's still there looking at the screen and watching what happened in the telescreen. And here another way, like 4th April 1984, last night to flex all war films. One very good, one of ship full of refugees being bombed somewhere in the Mediterranean. So he watched people already bombed, maybe died, all of them, but after receiving a bomb. So fine. To continue, page number 5, we have what we call here another description about helicopters. So they said a helicopter planted 20 kilo bomb among them traffic flash. So he imagined the helicopter, how it attacked the people, innocent people here and there. And you can see here the description of it, like what happened here. If we want to talk about fiction department at the Ministry of Truth. So we have a fiction department at Ministry of Truth, and here we can find something about O'Brien. It's a character. Let's find out what happened. There is an important inner party member named O'Brien, and O'Brien is a man he is sure is an enemy of the party. So a man he is sure is an enemy of the party. Winston remembers the moment before the day's 2 minutes hate. So there is also inside that novel 2 minutes hate as a simply during which party orators whip the populace into frenzy hatred against enemies of Oceania. And that's one point about O'Brien. And what happened here? Winston looks down and realizes he was written down with Big Brother over and over again in his diary. So his diary includes like kind of cursing about when you write down with Big Brother, it means you are trying to lower or to do the low respect. So if you de-respect the Big Brother, it means you are doing something wrong. And here he has committed thought crime, the most unpardoned crime. Why? Because if you write down with Big Brother, it means you are underestimate Big Brother. And here, O'Brien is there, like watching. Winston looks down and realizes that he was written down with Big Brother, and he was shocked because he found that O'Brien is around. So if you want to continue to the chapter, like in the chapter 1, we will find that Winston looked for freedom. He is illustrating the terrifying extent movement, how the 2 minutes there, the three slogans that the Ministry of Truth needs them to repeat every day. Maybe also the psychological manipulation, what happened with him because he's trying to replace his will replace the fear by his will, the independence and the faith in the party. He wants to remove the faith in the party to find another way of thinking. So that's what happened usually in chapter 1. And chapter 1 you have also Goldstein. Goldstein is another character. We can read more about Goldstein and how he is against the regime, and how he gave him later on the book. There is a book that be given to him. Here we have to understand that he caught O'Brien's eye. O'Brien had stood, he had taken off his spectacles and was the act of wrestling them. Why? Because he write down with Big Brother and O'Brien is watching him. So the fear started there when he repeated many times down with Big Brother, and that's really awful for him. Chapter 2, if we want to talk about chapter 2, we need to understand that in chapter 2 there is something we have to talk quickly about. Winston opens the door fearfully and assuming that the thought police have arrived to arrest him after what happened when O'Brien was around and he watched the word down with Big Brother. He realized, or he think that they will come to him to take his diary and the notes. However, it is only Mrs. Parsons. So there is another character here that's called Mrs. Parsons, which is a wife of a neighbor on the same floor. Therefore, we have like some information about her. She was a woman about 30, but looking much older. Some explanation about her and what happened to the situation with her. And Mrs. Parsons here, the flat was bigger than Winston's and dingy in a different way. That's a description as well. Also, she had to ask about, in another room, someone with a comb and piece of toilet paper was trying to keep tune with military music, which was still in the telescreen. So that's how the description of Mrs. Parsons and how he tried to talk with her about the condition, which is she need help with the plumbing. So she has something in the plumbing, and that's why as her husband is away of home, she asks Winston to help. So inside Parsons' apartment, Winston is tormented by the fervent Parsons' children. They are very angry and they are not quiet. And in the same time, they are spies. They are junior spies. So her children also work for the the party. They are still young or junior spies. They accuse him of thought crime. The Junior Spies is an organization of children who monitor adults for disloyalty to the party. So these those children of Miss Parson, they are also working for the regime. No one can deny that the children here they help the regime by the description. You can find it in page 13. And what happened here as well, the description. So Mrs. Barson herself seemed afraid of her children, or zealous children, the children that are very agitated because their mother won't let them go to public hanging of someone of the party political enemies in the park that evening. So the mother of Miss Barson tried to to stop her children. At the same time, she afraid of the thought crime or whatever of the system to arrest her. So Winston remembers a dream when he back to his apartment, and this dream is about the voice of O'Brien. So what happened to him? He afraid that later on the thought crime will come to arrest him. And here the last part, what happened? There is double thinking, age of double thinking. We have to understand in page number 14 there is double, or 15, double thinking. Double thinking, that's the way of thinking about two sides in the same time, and that's how people live in. So the last, what happened in the dream, I said, a man's voice opening, he think, said to him, we shall meet in the place where there is no darkness. We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness. And that voice made him very, very angry, and he so afraid of that voice. And that's why we have to understand that it's not good for Winston. He writes in his diary that his thought crime makes him a dead man. Then he hides the book. So he hides the book at the end. You can see at the end what happened here. With the tip of his finger, he picked up the identifiable grain of whitish dust and deposited it on the corner of the cover. So he took the book, or the diary book, and hid it. So the book already moved. So in chapter 3, what we have Winston, Winston in that chapter dreams of being with his mother on a sinking ship. He feels strangely responsible for his mother's disappearance. So as his mother here, you can see the mother already disappeared, and in the political purge almost 20 years ago. So he remembered all of this 20 years ago. He then dreams of a place called Golden Country, where the dark-haired girl takes off the clothes and run toward him in the act of freedom. And that's why it looks like kind of against the ministry of love. Moreover, also in that chapter you can find a description of Julia. So Julia here, you can recognize how the words describing her and the action that she did in a secret way. And then we have here Winston thinks about his childhood in the chapter. Also, he barely remembers something about his childhood, having no physical recourse such as photographs. It means no one in that country, Oceania, can carry any photo about his childhood or any document. So he didn't remember what happened exactly, but he's still memorizing and he makes one's life lose its outline in one memory. Winston considered Oceania relationship to other countries in the world, Eurasia and East Asia. So he think about Eurasia, East Asia. After he is dreaming, he was thinking also about, like here we can see Eurasia, we can see East Asia somehow in the description. According to official history, Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia and in alliance with East Asia. So that's his memory. And at the end of the novel, we can find upside down, we can find that East Asia is always an enemy of Oceania and there is alliance with Eurasia. So something with double thinking. And Winston also think or knows that records have been changed. The records of being alliance with Eurasia or East Asia always over and over changed. And Winston remembers that no one had heard of Big Brother, the leader of the party. So he's trying to look back 20 years back to find out whether the Big Brother is existed. So before 1960, stories about him appear in the history going back to 1930s. And Winston has these thoughts. A voice from telescreen suddenly calls out his name, reprimanding him for not working hard enough at physical jerks. Winston breaks out into a hot sweat and tries harder to touch his toes. So that's what happened when the telescreen called you when you are, away of work. So the telescreen also communicated with Smith to ask him to work. Like here, what happened? Smith screamed, this fresh voice from the screen, 6079 Smith, yes, you bend lower please, you can do better than that. So from that action you can recognize to what extent here the telescreen can connect people to people and find out them wherever they hide. And that's really, really complicated. We have here chapter 4. In chapter 4, what we can find in a quick explanation, we have Winston goes to his job in the record section of the Ministry of Truth, where he works with SpeakWrite, a machine that types and he dictates into it, destroys obsolete documents as he did as usual to change it into InkSoc book. So that's his work, and he updates Big Brother orders party records that match new developments. Big Brother can never be wrong. Even the citizens of Airstrip 1 are forced live with less food. They are told that they are being given more than ever by large. They believe it. This day, Winston must alter the record of speech made in 1983, which referred to. So here, that's a quick summary for what happened in chapter 4, and he has to change a lot of history to move on in his record. So the record department that he worked at Ministry of Love, he has to change the history that his daily work. And at the end, if we look at that chapter, at the end we can find that in December 1983, he has to change the record at that time. So it looks like very, away year. It's not like connected, and he has to change it. In chapter 5, what happened in chapter 5, we have to understand that comrades, whether one of Big Brother's former official who has been vaporized since Comrade Wither was executed as an enemy of the party. So there is something here for punishment. Someone is already executed because he is against the party, and you can see the conversation very quickly here. When you look at the conversation, there is a comrade. Comrade is a word used in the Communist Party or Communist system. And it is unacceptable to have document on file praising him as loyalty member. Winston invents a person named Comrade Ogilvy. So Comrade Ogilvy is one of the character. He already in that chapter 5. That Ogilvy already, what is his position? He is working also in records. Comrade Ogilvy, it's like kind of a product of Winston's imagination. So he imagined the Comrade Ogilvy, and he talked about him from his imagination. He's not, or it's not existed. And also what happened here, the Comrade Wither has become an unperson. He has ceased to exist. Watching a man named Comrade Tillotson in the cubicle across the way. Winston reflects on activity in the Ministry of Truth, where thousands of workers correct the flow of history to make it match party ideology and churn out endless drivel to pacify brutally destitute proletariat. So proletariat, as we say, so the whole chapter, or chapter 5, it talks about how the worker at Ministry of Truth, they work hard to change the history, and it's really a big deal how Winston himself did it, even he didn't believe in it, and that's what we call what happened in chapter 5. If we want to talk about chapter 6, which is the last, we have to understand that in chapter 6, Winston has launched with a man named Syme. So Syme is working also for the party, and Syme here, what happened with him is an intelligent party member who works on a revised dictionary of Newspeak, the official language of Oceania. So he is collecting the Newspeak, or the INGSOC. He tells, or Syme tells Winston that the Newspeak aims to narrow the range of thought to render thought crime possible. If there are no words in the language that are capable of expressing independent rebellious thoughts, no one will ever be able to rebel. And here is very important advice, even to conceive the word of rebellion. Winston thinks that Syme intelligence will get him the prize one day. Parsons, pudgy and fervent party official, and that the husband of the woman whose plumbing Winston fixed in chapter 2. So Syme is husband of Miss Parson, and we still remember that in chapter 2 we remember Mrs. Parson, and here it comes into a canteen and elicits contribution from Winston of Neighborhood Hate Week. He apologizes to Winston for his children. So Syme, the father of children, apologizes for his children's harassment the day before, but is openly proud of his spirit. Suddenly, an exuberant message from the Ministry of Plenty announces increases in production over the loudspeakers. Winston reflects that he alleged increase in the chocolate ration to 20 grams. So they just add 20 grams of chocolate by this announcement, and it's really funny for him how they have something in Ministry of Plenty, and is the something, or the thing that's related to 20 grams added to the chocolate, and that's really very funny for him. Why? Because from what we can find here, there is what we call an irony. And then Winston feels that he is being watched. He looks up and sees a dark-haired girl staring at him. He worries again that she is a party agent. So that's a conversation in the last page 38 in chapter 5, or chapter, we have chapter 6 here. So that's a communication. We need to understand that the communication at the end of chapter 6 is between Julia and Winston and how they talk to each other and staring at each other. At the beginning, he afraid of her. She is doing a duty to the party. She had actually used that phrase. So that's the way for the last description of chapter 6. I hope next time we can continue to talk more about the description of the chapters. We will discuss what happened in these chapters together. I wish also you can recognize many vocabs from that novel. See you later and I wish you good luck. Thank you again and I wish you all the best.